we were discussing the four types, the four qualities that a Navi has to have. He has to be an Anav, that's not much of a surprise. He has to be a Chacham, that's not much of a surprise. He has to be a Gibor, and he has to be wealthy. Now, those two, Theron actually has difficulty with. And he notes that there are Rishonim who tried, well, he doesn't call them Rishonim, but there are those who try to map that to Benzoma in Pirkei Avos and say that what it really means is that a Navi should be happy with what they have. And they should conquer their Yitzhahara, and therefore, Ezahu Barak Yitzro, and that's how all four things are actually spiritual accomplishments, and there's no question. So it doesn't work because the proof text for the Gibor and for the wealth are from the Luchos, are from Moshe and the Luchos. So one is a medrash. The Gibor is because he was able to hold the two stone tablets. So that shows he had strength. We're talking about pieces of sapphire lapis lazuli that were like what, a foot and a half? Foot and a half by 3 feet each. Foot and a half by 3 feet each. So they were substantial weight. And then to make the second luchos, he Kadosh Baruch Hu said Psalacha that he should carve for himself because the pieces he chipped off, he could sell and become wealthy. So you see that the quote is referring to normal, strength and wealth in the normal sense of the words. Mm-hmm. And what's it called? So we saw the Ran's answer to this is that the job of a Navi, and this is shortly before where I want to pick up, Umalos midos in shemala shedi yosemin Navi yosos lios sarich ledaber tamid b'fnei amim rabim. Right, a Navi has to constantly be talking in front of large, groups of people. So nikra Navi mitzad diburo tamid. He's called a Navi because he's constantly publicly speaking. Kishem Navi Miloshon Nivs Fasayim. The etymology of Navi is somebody who has an expression of his lips. Mm. So why does he have to be wealthy and strong? Because that's what people listen to. Mm-hmm. So, we're trying to meet people where they are because the Navi can't bring them up from there if he's not going to be listened to from, now. So we want our Navi to be this strapping wealthy guy and or woman in the case of Hulda and some others, and so that they can so that people will actually pay attention when they speak. The Rambam we saw outside, but the Rambam we saw listed at the end of Moreh Nevuchim, he lists 4 kinds of perfection, and it's these 4: wealth, health, midos, and intellect. And he ranks them in that order. So he considers midos to be inferior to chachma. He believes the best way to be a Baal Chesed is to be a Baal Chesed because it's logical, not because you've internalized the midah of Chesed. I'm not saying that this is what most people today believe, but the Rambam's still the Rambam. So according to him, it's just there are 3 forms of perfection. The fact that one of them is inferior to, 2 of them are inferior, and it seems kind of startling you need them. It doesn't change the fact that Navi has to be perfect in every way, and every way includes wealth and health. That's the Rambam's take. So we see 3 takes, right? With the Ran's being the wealth and the health is just because it helps charisma, right? People will listen and take you seriously if you if you carry yourself like that.
Mm-hmm.
V'ra'inu od, we saw in addition, Shemoshe Rabbeinu Olav Shalom, that Moshe Nifla Mizeh, he's greater than that. He's more wondrous than that. Sorry, he expressed, he himself was amazed from that. Eichaya, how could it be Shachreshin Nivchar Lenavi Lohusar Kovod Piv Lashono?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Moshe was surprised that once he's made a Navi, Hashem isn't going to give him the perfection of lips and tongue, right? Like that's sort of, we just said it's a quality in the Navi that they should be, that kind of physical perfection. And then the way, we're what's called, and then Moshe himself, in the very physical organs that he needs to do his job, lacks that physical perfection. V'hu amro, and this is what he says, lo ish devarim. That's why he says, well, what is this? I'm not, I'm not articulate. I'm not a person of words. V'hu kitmiya alzeh. He was surprised by this. Echu, how could it be? Shacharei devarcha el avdecha lo husar kbod pi. After you spoke to your servant, why didn't you remove the difficulty of speech of my mouth? Below Hashiv Hashem Yisbarach Bezeh, what did Hashem? Hashem didn't answer except me some pela adam, who gave a mouth to a person, ulefi hanera, and it would seem ain't tshuva linyan hatema klal. This answer doesn't resolve Moshe's wonder. So Moshe was surprised, and he said, and Hashem answers, who gave him a mouth? These are actually all these quotes that are repetitions from when he, he already outlined the conversation. So this is just recapping what he finds about the conversation he finds surprising. Vrinu ode. So the first problem is misam pe la adam. Who gave speech to him? Like, I can't speak well. Well, who gave a person a mouth? You think I couldn't give you a good speech if I wanted to? Doesn't really answer his question. So that's question number one. Reinu od l'Rabosenu zal. We also see that Chazal marchikim od shahayu Moshe mum gufani klal. They tried to stay far away from the idea that Moshe had any blemish, any physical imperfection at all. Amru b'perek hamakne. So it says in Sota, in the chapter named Hamakne, but tiftach v'tera es hayela. Well, this is actually Shmos. So Bas Paro opened the boat or the basket, v'tireu es hayela, and she saw the boy. V'hinei na'ar bocheh, and the youth was crying. So Chazal note that she saw a yeled, and she hears a youth cry, like the change in wording from yeled to nar. Vatachmol alav, and she had compassion on him. Vatomer miyaldei ha'ivrim hazeh. This must be one of the Jewish children. This must be one of the Jewish boys, actually, because the girls weren't. There was no motive to hide the girls. No one was trying to murder them. Kari le yeled. So the pasuk first calls the child a yeled, but kari le nar, and then it calls him a nar. Why? Tana. So now they're repeating an earlier idea. Who yeled v'kolo kanar. He was a child, but he had the voice of a youth. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So picture you have a baby in the basket, and instead of crying wah wah, it's crying like like an older child would. Amar lo Rabbi Nechemiah. So Rabbi Nechemiah said to Rabbi Yehuda, Im kain, if this is so, asisa l'Moshe Rabbeinu balmum. If you do this, then you're declaring Moshe somebody who is imperfect, who has a physical defect. And we can't believe that of a Navi, especially Moshe. Ella Melamed Sha'azasa Lo Imo, that his mother made for him chupas urim bateva. The mother made a bridal canopy, a chuppah, in the teva. It's calling it a chupas urim. So why is it dine nar boche? To tell you that the basket was made like a chuppah. Amra, that Yocheved said, Shema lo ezkelu chupaso. Maybe I'll never be able to give him a real chuppah. So she made a little chuppah in the basket because that was perhaps her only chance to give her little boy a chuppah, which Lamaisa was true, but not in the sad way she was picturing. It's true because what's it called? He gets married in a foreign country. Like she's over in Egypt, he gets married in Midian, right? They're nowhere near each other. So she wasn't at his chuppah. V'achrei asher tameu al zeh, eich lo tameu al mavur b'kasav b'yoso kavad lashon. Hold on. Why would Rabbi Nechemia have a problem with this little medrashic thing that Rabbi Yehuda says that he couldn't have a weird, childlike cry instead of the high-pitched squeak of a baby, because that's a balmum. The pasuk itself says that he had strange speech. So if Rabbi Nechemia is going to insist that there's no way Moshe could be a balmum, then Moshe had real reason to be surprised that Hashem wasn't fixing his speech. But tshuva zeh. So what's the answer to this two-part question? Kimiyos Torah. Oh, so one thing I want to point out: this question is not as strong as it seems. One of the defects of a Levi, that a Levi can't serve in the choir in the Beis Hamikdash, is if they have a distractingly low voice. So it could be that Moshe could be a stutterer, but not have a low voice, because a stutterer is allowed to sing it in the Beis Hamikdash, and somebody with a low voice is not. So halachically, Moshe the Levi would be a balmum in the laws of the Mishkan with the low voice, but he wouldn't be a balmum with the laws of the Mishkan as a stutterer. So it is possible to draw a distinction between the cases. It's also very easily possible that just because his voice started out low, maybe it would have dropped less. Maybe according to Rabbi Yehuda, it started out low, but by the time he was, he hit puberty, everybody else caught up. Like, just it wouldn't mean that he's invalid as a Levi, because by the time he's old enough to serve, it could have been a normal pitch. Like if it didn't drop as much as most boys do. So I don't know. I mean, but this is something we shown him discuss. Is that it's possible that mum here is a halachically defined, and therefore the Ran's argument wouldn't work. Well, let's go with the Ran, because either way it is strange. Regardless of this proof text, it is strange to think that there are four qualities for a Navi. One of them is that he's a Gibor, and here we have the greatest of all Nevi'im, and he's a stutterer, especially according to the Ran, who says the reason why he has to be a Gibor is so that people would listen to him. And now you have a person who it's like frustrating to listen to. But Chuval. So now here's his explanation. Kimiyos Torah v'kibluha hayoser gadol shefshar. The Torah and the acceptance of the Torah should be as great as possible. She'iyeh b'minha'im noshi. In all of the human species. Ro'ui la'am she'kabluha she'nenu horaos chazakos sha'torah hi amitit. So it would be appropriate that the nation who receives it has the strongest possible indication that what they're getting is something real. It'll remove, like lahasir is to take off of a donkey. She used her kol or musar to correct. She used her kol safek me'osan lahora'os. It'll remove from them any doubt, but bosan hara'os, by these indications, me'inyan kulo bechlalo she'ein ba ki bechol eloki, so that it will be true, kolo bechlalo, altogether, that there's nothing in it, except it's all divine. Valzen nimshach yitzias mitzrayim. And this is the whole reason for Yitzias Mitzrayim. Well, maybe not the whole reason. He just says from this, is the importance of of it could be an importance, or it could be the importance of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Kulo, I guess all. Sharatza Hashem Yisbarach, sheyichadesh oso b'geula, that sheyichadshu oso b'geula hahi, that he'd renew the nation through this geula, shehu b'li safek haschalas haTorah el kol Yisrael, which is without a doubt the beginning of the Torah for all of Israel. L'man yedu ki hanimnaos b'chok hateva eino hanimnaos b'chok Hashem Yisbarach, that things that are impossible naturally are not impossible by divine law. So that's the point of Yitzias Mitzrayim, according to what the Ran's saying now, was to make it clear that what's going on is something above natural law. So Yitzias Mitzrayim becomes the prelude to Matan Torah. Sheyichadshu osos b'geula hazu, that there'd be new signs through this geula. Sheibeli safek hafana hayoser gedola b'das, that it would be hapina, it would be the greatest cornerstone of our religion. It's funny because in my notes I actually put the nakudos there, and then when I needed it, I didn't see them. Okay, umisha yachbar osa yachbar is a das biklala, and somebody who is kofar in this idea, somebody who denies, overturns this idea, overturns the entire religion, v'yivatel gemul ba'onesh lagamrei, and dismisses the whole idea of reward and punishment. Right? If God it could only do what's natural, then reward and punishment goes out the window. That's what the Ran says. I don't think Hindus would agree, because the idea of karma is that reward and punishment are a natural law. Right? Karma is kind of like reward and punishment without a rewarder. So, but within the framework that we're dealing with, right? If you understand nature the way the West does, in terms of explorable laws of science, then you don't have reward and punishment without having chok hakel, as he calls it, chok Hashem, as he calls it, divine law as opposed to natural law. B'yozeh kotev haTorah asher alav tisov hageula shehi hakdama laTorah. And this is the axis, the pole that the entire Torah revolves around, that the geula revolves around, and that which is the introduction to the Torah. Yirtzeh Hashem Yisparach she'yisparsim das ba'ol beretz Mitzrayim, and Hashem wanted that this idea would be pirsum, would be publicly proclaimed in the land of Egypt. Lefi shehi eretz chartumim, specifically because it's a land of magicians, machshefim, and another kind of magicians. Maybe magicians and prognosticators. Uma sheyivchan sham shu davar nimna b'chol kateva, And what they demonstrate in Egypt as being beyond the laws of nature, and things that they couldn't do through magic, which is just a kind of natural wisdom. So if the magicians of Egypt can't do it, then it has to be divine. It'll be kind of like nowadays, right? If you want to do a miracle and you want to know that, you want to make sure everybody knows that it's a miracle, right? You'd bring it to CERN, or you'd bring it to I don't know, the cynics of New York, right? People who think that they've mastered technology, and you do things that they can't reproduce technologically. So the whole reason for Yetzias Mitzrayim was A, the Yetzia was beyond nature, and B, Mitzrayim was the place where they best know the limits of nature, because that's where the masters of Kisha were. So if you do something that can't be done naturally, it's appropriate to believe that it was done by divine power without a certain doubt, without any doubt. Sorry. And something that is an insurmountable problem for natural law is not an insurmountable problem for the Creator's law. And if the miracles would have been done in a place that had less wisdom, there'd still be a doubt on this cornerstone of the religion. Maybe Moshe was, a dot-comer, and he just came out with technology that nobody else had yet. So he went to the people who would know the limits of what technology existed in their day. By the way, Khartoumim, which I defined as magicians, a shartoum is a oval with somebody's name on it. Khartoum is also a city in Libya, although it was in Mitzrayim in those days. The Khartoumim may have been the literate class who originated in Khartoum, the city. In which case, it would really be the educated, the most educated of the world, as opposed to the magicians as magicians. We said that already. Maybe maybe Moshe knew magic and he did a bunch of magic tricks. And that they're all actually doable naturally. As I said, it took being Mitzrayim for them to know that this was miles beyond anything we could do technologically. So this idea implied to Chazal, Mesechtes Menachos, Perikol Kabanos, Amrei le Yochanan, Yochanan umamrei le Moshe. So Yochni and Mamre, who are presumably not Jews, said to Moshe, Teven atamachnis lo'ofriim? Are you bringing coals to Newcastle? No, I mean, are you bringing straw to Ofriim? Why are you doing magic in Egypt? It's bringing coals to Newcastle, we would say nowadays, right? What's the point? So what does Chazal say in the Medrash? Amar Lahu. Yeah, there's lots of cross-outs because the Medrash as we have it in the Gemara is not the way the story is. I corrected the Ran to our Gemara. Amar Lahu. So Moshe answered these two Egyptians. Amrei Inshi Lamasa Yarka Yarka Shkol. That you should take your greens to a place where they weigh greens, right? If you want to sell vegetables, go to a place that has vegetables. Meaning, if I have quality product, I have the world's best scallions. Who's going to pay top dollar? The person who knows what a good scallion is. So therefore, that's Moshe's answer. If you want to get top dollar for your vegetables, you better go to a place where they weigh out the vegetables. Similarly, the Ran is unpacking that medrash to give the message that we saw in the previous paragraph. That the reason why all the miracles were happening in Mitzrayim is because the Mitzrayim weigh the vegetables. They know what a miracle is as opposed to magic, as opposed to technology. He knows that the Ran just assumes magic is a kind of technology. He doesn't treat it like dark arts or something. Just kind of interesting because if he says kishuf is natural, would he have problems with high tech as being against the Torah because it's kishuf? I don't really think so, but he does open the question. So these two people understood. Shahayu Michlal Chartume Mitzrayim. They were, sorry, Kach Pirshu. This is the way we explain the story. Yochni and Mamre were two of the Chartumim of Mitzrayim. Shechoshvu She'ela Osos Shechidesh Hanavi Haneman, that these signs which the trustworthy prophet did new Shechid Sham Ba'osam Tachpulos, that he did it with tricks. Tifsu alav Achareshabal Ramos Hahamon Ledatam Hamaguna. And therefore they attacked him for what's it called? That he came to fool the nation with their evil, belief. How do you go to a land that's full of these kinds of tricks? So he answered to them, people say to a place of vegetables, you should weigh out your vegetables. Klomar, or take your vegetables. Klomar, shasholem be'eza davar, somebody who has something whole, perfect in something. Shayiyah, be'eza davar shayiyah, lo tukar ma'alaso, ki im be'eretz shayimtzu bo chachamim me'asar davar batzbo. They won't recognize its quality, except in a land where you have people who are knowledgeable about this thing, right? Like the scallions. You go to a place where people know what a good scallion is. Or you go to a place where people know what good magic is. Kisham yivchan otzem chachmaso, because there they will recognize, they will be able to perceive the depth of his wisdom, al chachmasam, that it is great, that is deeper than theirs. Kamosha yerek hayoter meshubach yimkar yoser be'ir rabas hayerek. Like the top quality vegetable will sell for more money in a land that has a lot of vegetables. Kisham tu karma laso al hachirim, because that's the place where they'll recognize how much better it is than all the others. Kain Moshe yivchanu ososav be'eretz hazos. So right, so the makos, all the miracles that Moshe mediated, right, would be perceived in this land in particular. Right, because this was what's it called? Nerachim. Nerachim, help me, Steg. You have to unmute to help me though.
evaluated.
Good. Yeah, like erichin. I just couldn't think of a word. Right? They'll be better evaluated or more accurately evaluated there than in another place. Yisparakan b'li shem na'asim b'koach eloki. There they would know that it is done without any doubt through divine force. That humans are not, it's beyond the human capacity to, the human wisdom to do these things. In a imkain ha'inyan kulo nusad be'inyan efshar sheyipol bo hasafek. The whole thing was established in a way that nobody would have a doubt about it. So that long paragraph establishes one thing. Why was there a Yetzias Mitzrayim? Because we wanted miracles, and B, we wanted miracles in a land where they actually know the difference between magic, technology, and miracles. Because the whole idea was that when the Torah was given, no one would have any doubts that we're dealing with God, that we're dealing with something beyond human understanding and human ability. So now, what does that say about Moshe's stutter? Because that was where we were, or whatever kavad peh means, whatever is speech impediment, right? Because that was the question we were trying to answer, right? So he goes back to this. Luzos hasiba, and for this reason, Nishalei Moshe b'kol shleimus navi. Moshe was invested with all the perfections of a navi. Like we saw, he was wealthy, he was a gibor, except for what? Lamin shenyano b'koach eloki. So you'd understand that he was dealing with divine force. And it was hashkacha that took away the lucid speech. So you had somebody who was perfect in every way but how he spoke. So that no one would have the furthest thought that Bnei Israel and the greats of Israel, the leaders, followed him. No one would think that he is an eloquent speaker who, through the power of rhetoric and demagoguery, got everybody to follow him. If the whole point of the perfection of the Navi is so that people listen to the Navi, then in this one context where the whole idea is to make it clear that we're dealing with the supernatural, we had to make sure that this one Navi didn't have that eloquence. So that if people followed him, it was because of the power of what he said, not the power of how he said it. It's known that they say about somebody who is eloquent, that he could draw people's hearts after, he could draw the masses after him. Right? La'avdil, in the 1930s. Right? You talk a good game, you could get people to things they would never have thought of 5 years earlier. But mimenu yachshav emes. And when such a person lies, you're going to think it's true. And the whole thing is reversed when you deal with somebody who stammers. Even when he says the truth, it's not all that accepted. Oh, sorry, he says not accepted at all, but I toned it down naturally because I know, stutterers who could convince you of something. Ki'im b'chozek hagoluso. So, no, exactly what I was just saying. Okay, never mind. right? If somebody stammers, convinces you of something, it's obviously because of the merits of what he's saying, of what he revealed, and not because he's just an eloquent speaker. This is why Moshe had the speech impediment, and it was full ashkacha. Lo sheya davar nofel b'mikra. It was not accidental. And now we understand how the answer that Hashem gave him, who makes a person's mouth, right, is sufficient to answer Moshe's question. Included in this answer, a very subtle point of wisdom. Ki hadarim lo yitachen lomar al tzad emes pula u'sima. You can't say the words doing or making when it comes to adarim, when it comes to absences. You can make a thing. You don't make an absence. Ki eina inyan bekinyan ve'eder ki inyan bein beis hafachim. When it comes to an acquisition or lacking it, it is not like when we have the existence of two opposites. When you have two opposites, let's say red and blue, lo tichlolo sam siba achas. It's not sufficient to give one explanation. It can't be that this one's red and this one's blue for exactly the same reason. There has to be some motive, some cause that, even if it's through the same force, that the force turned one red and the other one blue. There has to be two explanations. Each one has to have its own explanation. I could read that 3 times, can I? And therefore we use the word poel, action, in causing each of these things, as opposed to no things. Kasher Yomar like you could say by white and black. Kimishel bin habeged, somebody who whitens a garment. So we don't mean light and black in terms of like light and darkness. We're talking the color, like a garment, right? So somebody who bleaches a garment, hashachor, black garment, palbo halovan. So he's doing the action of bleaching. Lefisha ein sibas halavan, sur sibas hashachrus. The reason, the cause of the whiteness is not the removal of the cause of the blackness, levad, alone. Yes, there is a cause of the black ended, but there's also a cause that was replaced with white. To each one we call an action. But that's not true when we're dealing not with two different things, but with an absence and a presence of the same thing. And therefore we call the acquiring something an action. But not its absence. What causes an absence? The lack of the cause of the presence. Right? A light bulb explains both light and darkness. A light bulb doesn't explain both red and blue. It could be a partial cause of the red and blue, but you need an explanation for why this one's red and this one's blue, or why this piece of wool is white and this piece of wool is black. But you don't need for why there is light and why there's darkness. It's either the sun is there or the sun's not there, but the cause is the sun either way. Kasher Tomar ki alos hashemesh ala aretz sibas haor. Sunrise over the land is the reason for the light. Hine ki haor nitle b'po'alahu, because the or depends on this action. Aval hachoshech shu nedar, darkness is the absence of light. Ha v'ra'inu nitle b'po'al, and we say it depends on an action. Rak beheder sibas haor. Right? What does it depend on? It depends on the lack of light. L'chein lo titakein bo hu'ula ubriya ki im b'hadara. Therefore, we don't speak of it being, and the result of an action, the effect of an action, or created, except in absence. Now, this actually. Okay, let me finish the paragraph. It's not a thing in itself. Darkness is not a thing in itself. It's the lack of something. It's not a thing. It's the absence of a thing. It's nothing in and of itself. It's only the no, we said that already. The koach hadibari achitoni, being able to speak, external dibur, ve'alamus, and being an elaim, and being mute. Ke'inyan yanam ke'inyan beis hafachim. It's not like two opposites, like the red and blue. She'iyah kol echad me'em siba achas miuchedes. They don't each have their own cause. Ad sheyitzarech kol echad ral poel umesim. They don't need each their own actor and maker. Elanyanam kinyan hakinyan vaeder. Speech and muteness is having a property or lacking a property. Shelamus ein lo sibab ifnei atzma. Being mute doesn't actually need a cause. We don't normally think like this because most people speak. Then you ask, why is that person mute? But really, he's saying you don't need to ask why a person's mute. They lack the power of speech. The amazing thing is that everybody else has the property that they can speak, not that they lack the property. Rak heider sibas hadavar, right? Lamos is not, muteness is not a cause in and of itself. It's the lack of the cause of being able to speak. L'chein lo yitachein lomar ein tzarech hadiktuk outside hadiktuk. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to say from a diktuk perspective, from a grammatical perspective, Hashem Yisparach Yasim Elaim, that Hashem makes muteness. Ki alamos enenu nitla besiba rak be'eder siba. So basically, Hashem is saying to Moshe, who is it who created mouths that speak? Because it's not that Hashem creates mouths that don't speak, is that he doesn't give the mouth the power to speak. The Moshe's difficulty speaking is the lack of a gift. It's not caused, it's the perfection not being caused. So the thing I wanted to point out, though, was that the question of whether darkness is created or not, famous pasuk we almost say every morning, Yotero roi choshech, oseh shalom uveris hara. That's the pasuk, not the bracha. Or uveris hakol. But either way, we're only looking right now, Yotero veri choshech. So how does he say that the words sima and that the word bria shouldn't apply to darkness when Lamaisa, that's an actual pasuk that says that darkness is ubari choshech, Hashem creates darkness.
That may be like the special darkness of Yerushalayim or something. Not Yerushalayim, but Mitzrayim, I mean.
It could be. It could also be. Well, I mean, obviously, the McQuillan believe that darkness is a created entity. And the truth is, if you deal from a phenomenological point of view, if I said that right, darkness is an experience. The fact that in physics it's a lack of something doesn't mean that in the human experience it's a lack of something.
True.
Right. Hashem created the experience, the phenomenon of experiencing being in the dark. The fact that he gives it to you by taking away light doesn't change the fact that what's going on in the mind, the first-hand experience of darkness is a thing. But no, he's actually going to go on. And I thought, we may be doing it today because we have another 15 minutes since we started 10 minutes late. That this is not true for Hashem Yisparach.
Could you also say that Yoter Or Hoshech is as a set? Because with that, like before creation, like the phenomenon of things not existing in the first place is something very different than within the context of creation, there being light and the absence of light.
That's pretty close to what I usually think when I'm saying the bracha while thinking. I think of Yotzer Or as the creation of light, Uvarech Choshech, that he created more space than he filled with light. In other words, before there is space, there is no light, but there's no darkness because there's no place to be lacking light.
Right. That's what I was right. I was thinking slightly different, I guess, in terms of the creation of light or the formation of light as a phenomenon in the created world automatically therefore creates the effect of when that is absent. Whereas before creation, it's just nothing. It's incomprehensible.
It's sort of like the Pesach is saying, by giving form to this thing called light, he thereby created the concept of darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
It does. And it's more subtle than what I was thinking.
I think, Steg, what you're saying is you got to take it as a phrase, not as two individual clauses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why does that tell you about Oseh Shalom Uvares Hara? By creating the concept of wholeness and peace, right, it creates the possibility of them not existing.
Right. Like,
or a place where they don't exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Amnam. Kvar kasvu achachamim. Shal tzad ha'avara halashonis. So by extending the etymology, that's the best I could do with havara halashonis. Yomar al misha hu bitel sibas hakinyan, that somebody who removes the cause of a property, of having a property, shehu chidesh, that he did something new. So even though, shutting off the light is not causing something new, it's stopping the cause of light. It's a natural linguistic extension to say that he caused it to be dark, as opposed to he stopped the cause of it being light. V'zeh amro yotzer or v'orei choshech. Al pi shelo tita. Now we could discuss whether the Ran meant what I think when I daven, or what Steg suggested, or a third thing. Right? He's saying that it's not actually creating darkness. It's the act of actively removing light is the creation of darkness. Not in the normal sense of the word borei as a Havara halashonis, extending the language. Steg looks like he's happier with his own explanation to the Rans.
No, I'm just still trying to comprehend what the Ran is saying.
Well, the Ran's
And
saying that
the
Borei Choshech is not literally Bria in the etymologically strict use of the word, from the Shoresh, ex nihilo, etc. It's extending the meaning of the word in a natural way. Hashem actively caused.
If I can metaphor.
If you build a dam, you made it be dry, even though what you really did was you stopped the river from wetting it.
Okay.
So in that sense, he was Borei Choshech. Afapi shalot titachein b'choshech bria, even though you can't really talk about creating darkness, ki ein ataso rak heder sivas ha'or, right? There's nothing to create. It's just the lack of whatever caused the light. Same way we say that somebody who extinguishes the candle, right? Somebody who puts the lamp out made it dark. There are 3 kinds of stopping a cause. And 2 of them would say made darkness or caused darkness by this extension of the etymologically strict, source of the word para. The third, you can't even stretch the word borei to cover. The first is Sheyomar Misha Kavo Haner, that you say about somebody who extinguishes the ner, Shapala Choshech, he caused darkness. He actively stopped the light. Therefore, it's the least of a stretch to say that he caused the darkness. Vizui Krova Liyoso Nitlis Papoel. It is pretty close to saying that it is caused by an action. Outside Havara, by the extinguishing. Hasheni b'misha nimna misha who wrote to lahadlik kaner b'beso. The second one is you prevent somebody from lighting the candle. So you're still doing something active to prevent the lighting. The first one, you stopped something that was already a process that was already in motion. And the second one, you stopped the process from starting. Therefore, you could say that the person who stopped the balabayas from lighting his lamp, he caused it to be dark. Hashlishi Yomar Boshu Sibas Hader Bederach Havara. Gamamisha Lo Hidlik Hanever Beso Shalo Yoirbo. Third one is the person who never lights the candle. Shisibas Hederor. If you don't light the candle, well, guess what? You're going to have a shortage of light. But that third one, that you can only say by a person. But when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can't talk about the person who can't say Hashem didn't light the candle. I'll explain what I mean in a minute, because I think this has huge philosophical implications. Because Hashem is the cause of all forms of acquisition, of having a property. So similarly, he's the cause of all forms of lack. And that is on the way I'm about to explain.
You're saying that Hashem's choice not to do something is an act of doing?
Well, he's about to explain it in the next paragraph. So you want to see if we have time for the next paragraph, or you want to have a discussion? I mean, I don't know which direction to go in. It's not a short paragraph.
I think like,
yeah, I mean, if everybody has the time to run a little long, I mean, that's the problem. Yeah.
I'm almost at my destination. supposed to be. I'm at going to an
Okay.
8:45.
Okay,
meeting.
I'll see how far we could go in this paragraph, and then we'll pick up from the beginning of the paragraph again. Well, from the middle of, from this 3 forms of lack. Well, that's where we'll start next week, but we'll get a little taste of it. You do a shekol davar she'i efshar lesaper bo shenafal b'mikra. It's evident that cannot be said that happened by chance. Listar v'hanchaso v'inyano moral poal kivun bo. No, I can't do this justice. Okay, so let's just pause here. The problem with saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu just didn't turn on the light is a person doesn't get around to doing everything they want to do. God not turning on the light means he actively chose not to turn on the light. So this 3rd form of lack has totally different implications when you're talking theology than when you're talking people. And that's kind of his point. Right? There's no way to say that Hashem, with a person, a crime of omission and a crime of commission. This is why I think that it has huge philosophical implications. A person's crime of omission is less severe than his crime of commission. Right? Because for us, it takes effort to do something, it takes time to do something. You don't have the resources to do everything you want. So you don't get something, like it's not as bad as like taking the time out and using the energy and money to actually do it. So a crime of commission is worse. Shev al taseh, right? The things that Chazal continue to do with shev al taseh, it's not as bad as telling you to actually actively do something. But with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where there's no limitations, anything he doesn't do is just as much a choice as anything he did. So
Right.
all 3 kinds of lack could be said in this extended language sense as actually being something God did.
Right.
Now, where I was going to take this conversation, if we hadn't run out of time, but the thing that bothers me is what this does to the people who want to say the question about the Shoah is not what Hashem did, but what people did. Because you can't take them out of the, like, you have to, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that, he was going to let free will run, then you have to explain why he chose Nazi free will over Jewish survival.
Right.
Right? You can't talk about an absence as being less God's action than a presence, because it's all effortless. It's all just right. He could get to anything he wants to do. If he chose not to do it, it's as much a choice. There is no lack of cause. Right?
Right.
Right. The lack of good in the world has to be explained, even if you blame it on divine inaction.
Right. Wonderful Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos. Enjoy your dinner. So that I think is a huge, like there are books, particularly in the non-Orthodox world, there are books that like focus on the problem of the Holocaust in terms of where was man, not where was God. But I really think that it forces you to ask, why did Hashem choose to let man act? Because you can't say it's just a crime of omission. The Ran is saying that doesn't really make sense with God. Personal feeling, by the way, just to not leave the question hanging. Not that there is a good answer. It's a much better question than answer. But if people didn't have free will, then we wouldn't be people. Meaning there'd be no moral recipients of good. So Hashem has to at times choose free will over happiness, because there'd be no real happiness. I mean, a bunch of puppets or robots being happy is not happiness. So that's my take for why Hashem sometimes chooses free will over everything turning out okay.
That's Oseh Shalom Uvoreh Ra.
Well, yeah, but you see, the way I understood the pasuk before this conversation is that Hashem gives us an arena in which to have free will, and only fills part of it with good because there has to be room for us to make all our choices. And if it was all full of his tov and there was no other choices to make, then we wouldn't have choices. That's the way I read the parallel between creating light, creating darkness in the sense that he created more space to. There's also, it's the same difference between being in the dark and being blind.
Right.
Somebody who was born sighted, sometimes who's blind, will sometimes feel like they're in the dark because the brain fills in the lack of light. They're used to seeing things. But somebody who's born blind doesn't see darkness, right? It's kind of a, in what's it called? In database theory, it's the difference between 0 and a null. How much? Right. How much does light weigh? It weighs 0. How much does the Star Spangled Banner weigh? Null, because talking about the weight of a song is meaningless.
Right.
Right. It's not that it has no weight. It's just not an applicable concept. Right. So until there was, so that's kind of where what I said and what my understanding, and your more subtle understanding come to some kind of likeness, right? Is that, right? The space that is dark only exists because there was a concept of light, right? Like otherwise it would be blind, not like being in the dark.